Tighten up.
Yep.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Whatever's on your mind, bodybuilding and beyond, it is all on the table. So now bringing Dave Palumbo. Dave, yesterday was kind of a interesting day on the RX Muscle side of things, a bit of a quiet day, but as it was really for all of YouTube, as YouTube had a bit of a glitch, so a lot of content creators refrained from putting much up. We didn't upload anything until about 7:30 p.m. last night Eastern Standard Time. However, on a brighter side, you surprised Logan, now 7 years old, took your whole family to Legoland. How was that?
Yeah, I guess when I went to Legoland, it must have broke YouTube because they're like, oh, Dave can't post any content now, so we have to shut YouTube down for a little bit of time. We had a good time. Actually, Logan's home from school because he got sick. He's actually right next to me here. He's gonna, I'm sure, just say hello and then you go back. All right.
Hey, Logan.
7 years old.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I was telling Amanda last night, posted on our Facebook thread that 6 years ago, Logan was a baby.
Watch my journey.
Up in New York in the Westbury offices. Little Logan would follow me around to the office. So cute. So grown up now, Logan. Happy birthday.
All right. Say happy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Sid and I got to do the show. You know, it's funny. Logan was fearless. He went on every roller coaster. He has absolutely no fear of any ride whatsoever, which is the total opposite of me because I don't like to go on any of those crazy rides at all. So thank God Mama went on with him, right? All right. Thank you. Go. You're supposed to be resting, right? Because you're sick, home from school. So now that he missed 2.5 weeks of school from the vacation they give them, and then we took him yesterday to Legoland, and now he's got another day off. So back to school tomorrow. All right, let's get to it, Sid.
Well, let's get to the questions, of course, on the show. The first 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience. That first question, Dave, due to personal circumstances, I'm not comfortable with breaking any laws purchasing PEDs. If used correctly with proper PCT liver support, can legal pro-hormone be used safely and without causing gyno? Also, let's start with that. Let's start with that angle. Again, it could be any reason. I mean, maybe it's in law enforcement or something where they cannot be caught using PED. So he wants to know if pro-hormones can be, I guess, an acceptable substitute and be taken in a safe manner.
Well, you know, it's important to understand if you are being drug tested, you know, by law because you're a law enforcement agent or something like that. Pro-hormones will test you positive for most anabolic steroids. So you really don't want to use those. And there's really no such thing as a legal I guess you could say pro-hormone, which are really, the pro-hormones the last 10 years have been just steroids that haven't been classified. So there's really none out there that are legal. Now, if someone's selling them, it's probably because they're doing it illegally. And, you know, that's up to you. The problem is that a lot of the stuff that is being sold that is, quote, saying that it's a pro-hormone, they're really not. So, you know, I can't in good conscience tell you to use those things. I know people sell SARMs. They're really not legally sold either, but there is SARMs out there. If you go to Peptide, you can buy stuff, quote, legally that's really illegal in a sense. So my suggestion, if you really want to get a boost, is go to a hormone replacement clinic like TitanMedicalCenter.com and just do it legally, you know, and get on some testosterone and do it that way. I mean, that's my really, because at least you know what you're putting into your body. I can't in good conscience tell you to go put that other stuff in because I can't really verify what it is a lot of times, especially when you're getting it from peptide websites. And questionable, manufacturers that are making supposedly pro hormones, especially when I know that they're not legally sold here anymore. It's a sketchy situation. And so I couldn't give you like a cycle. Hey, use this pro hormone and that, this and that, this, and you're going to get good results. It's a crapshoot at best. And there's no way to even test these products because Roy tests only test the legitimate anabolic steroids that are actually legitimately being made by pharmaceutical companies. Now, obviously, if they're being made by underground people, that's fine, but at least they're known drugs and with a known signature, which can be detected by Roy tests to see if there's actually in there. And a lot of them can be detected what the dosage is. So my suggestion would be try to do something that's, mild but legal.
Second question, again, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. What amount of testosterone per week do you think, and he goes in parentheses, I know this is just an educated guess, becomes more of a risk than reward for long-term health? I've been doing 300 a week, 100 more than my doctor prescribes me for about 5 years. And my blood levels are all within range. BP 120/70. I'm 61, 210. 61, 210, 6 feet 1. 6 feet 1 says 50 years old, 6 feet 1, and 210 pounds.
I when I would take hormone replacement back in the day, before I went through the whole getting my kids and making my wife pregnant and stuff like that, and I went off all that stuff, I would take 100 milligrams a week of testosterone, and my testosterone level was like 1,200 on, and that's super high. The high normal is usually 850. So what I found was that everyone's body utilizes the testosterone that they inject differently. Why my levels were so high, it's hard to tell. I don't know. My body just uses testosterone better than other people. And then this guy is taking 300 milligrams per week, which is more than HRT levels, and he's in the normal range. He's high normal, but he's in the normal range. So everyone's body processes and breaks down. Maybe his body is converting testosterone into estrogen and DHT at a higher level than mine was. And that's why his levels are lower. So I would say as long as your DHT and estrogen is not through the roof and your testosterone's in normal range, I think you're pretty good to go. And you're not experiencing any heart side effects where your heart is getting bigger, or you're not producing an exorbitant amount of red blood cells because, we know that when we take hormone replacement, it can increase red blood cell production in the bone marrow. As long as that's not going on and your blood pressure is normal, like you said, I don't see any reason why that would be necessarily a bad thing. If, however, you went for blood work, 5 days after your injection, and you're just showing that you're kind of in the high level range because you hadn't taken a shot. And meanwhile, 2 days after your shot, you're really at 2,000 total testosterone. That's not a good thing. So my suggestion would be go for your blood work like 3 days after your shot and then see what your levels are. If they're still in the high normal range, then that's fine. If they're not, they're really through the roof, and you just happen to take them when you're on the low end right before your next shot, then I would don't delude yourself into thinking, oh, I'm fine. I'm only at 850 when you're really at 2,000 most of the week. Only toward the end of the week are you dropping down a little bit. That's my suggestion. And these questions were from the Dave Palumbo Experience app, which is an app that I put out there. It's $29 a month. You get me as your coach in your back pocket. All my writings, all my videos on that app. We do an exclusive Q&A video once a week just for the app members. And I also answer everyone's questions in an open forum, Q&A type style. Everyone can see everyone's questions, everyone's answers, and we put a workout up every single week. Plus, you have access to all my templates and my diets and stuff like that. Great resource. A lot of people really love the app. It's something where you can have continuing learning on a daily basis. If this is what you're doing for a living, you're a coach, or you're into bodybuilding and learning on a regular basis, this app is a bargain price for what you're getting for it. So check it out.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, the handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time on YouTube, we ask that you subscribe below, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below, and as always, we appreciate your support.
Sid, I want to just bring up something. I'm always amazed because I can see statistics of people who watch the show on a regular basis, but who are not subscribers. I'm always amazed that people don't subscribe to the channel. I don't know if it's a lazy aspect or if it's just they don't like to subscribe to things. When I have a channel that I watch that I happen to like, I always subscribe and I always turn on that notification bell because I don't want to miss anything. Like, I don't see it as like intrusive to me because I actually want to know, because I'm so busy that I don't have, sometimes I forget. Even with when I watch Apple TV, or I always, set the next episode of whatever, series I'm watching to notify me when it comes out, so I know it's out, And so, guys, if you're watching the show on a regular basis, just hit that subscribe button. It's silly not to, and turn on those notifications, because it's going to benefit you, so you know when stuff comes out. Because a lot of the stuff we do is timely in manner, like news updates and stuff like that. It's just you find it's like TMZ. I hate to admit it, I go to TMZ for a lot of my news because it's quick and I just check it all the time. And same thing with this. We do constantly updating news breaks and stuff like that on here and on our Instagram. So check that out. So if you haven't subscribed, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button.
Do you get anyone calling you professor? Because this guy's calling you professor.
No, I haven't had anyone to call me that. I've been called some pretty bad names, but never professor.
So Broderick says, Professor, what do you think of niacin for heart health and lowering cholesterol?
Niacin is an interesting compound, because they were using niacin to raise HDL cholesterol, believe it or not. A lot of people don't realize it's very hard to find something that raises HDLs, which are the good cholesterol carriers that kind of scoop up all the garbage in the blood vessels. They found that exercise increases it a little bit. Like a glass of wine, they found that moderate alcohol can increase it a little bit. But niacin was something that they did show was the only supplement that really increased HDLs. I'm not talking about lowering LDLs. I'm talking about raising HDLs. The problem, they said, with some niacin was that, they said that in high dose niacin, they thought maybe might cause some liver problems. I don't know if that ever proved it. I think that was a BS story, to be honest with you, because I think the government doesn't want people using supplements to improve their health. They'd rather them use prescription drugs like statins. I don't think there's any necessary thing any bad. I don't like that niacin rush feeling. A lot of people say, well, you could take the non-flushing niacin, but I don't think it's as potent as, I don't think it actually helps HDL cholesterol if you use the non-flushing one. So have I seen people use it and successfully raise HDLs? Not significantly. So I don't necessarily know if it's something that is even warranted taking, other than what's in your multivitamin. Like, we have niacin in our V-mineralized formula, so I don't usually tell people to just supplement extra. But if you have really low HDLs and you have really high LDLs, it might not hurt to try to see if you can raise them, especially if you're on anabolics.
Again, from our Instagram feed, we go to our good friend, the real Coach Powers, Alone Powers. What up? What is the adequate, and I guess that could be in a broad sense, adequate cycle for Anavar for a healthy, physically fit man over the age of 40?
I hate to say this, so no one wants to hear it. I think Anavar is like one of the worst drugs for men, really. It's just weak. If you take it alone, you're probably not going to notice very much of anything, As a matter of fact, I always worry about taking a really purely anabolic compound in the absence of taking testosterone with it, because I think sometimes, my belief is that there's a certain amount of androgen in your body. In other words, androgenic hormones that cause sex drive and all those aggressive, tendencies that we attribute to androgenic steroids, like testosterone and anadrol and dianabol and trenbolone. These are all highly androgenic compounds. They don't just build, anabolic builds muscle, androgenic, glycogen storing, aggression, strength, stuff like that. And, I just think that if you take too much anabolic, meaning a compound like Anavar that has low androgenic content to it, you can actually water down the amount of androgenic hormones in your body. And I found personally, when I would take like Primo and cycles, like Primo and Winstrol without testosterone, I looked hard and everything like that, but I kind of lost my sex drive a little bit. I just didn't feel as aggressive on the stuff. And I attributed that to me taking too little androgen and having too much anabolic in the system. And for a man, that could be a problem. For women, obviously, that's not a problem. Women take Anavar and they get horny on it, and because it's a male hormone, even though it's very low in androgens, it's still raising their levels of something they don't have a lot of. So I always recommend that women use Anavar and save it for them. I just don't see any benefit. Now, I know some men that will take Anavar on top of a testosterone and equipoise and Masteron cycle, but at that point, it's kind of like throwing sand on the beach. I don't think it's really doing that much more. Some powerlifters like it because it does increase strength and it doesn't make you hold a lot of water. So if you're trying to make a weight class, I know that a lot of powerlifters will use Anavar to do that. But then again, halo testing does the same thing, and halo testing, makes you really aggressive too. So that throws that theory out the window. I just don't think it's a great drug for men, and that's just my opinion. Like I said, and it's expensive. If you get real Anavar, like from a hormone replacement clinic or something like that, it's going to set you back a couple, probably $5 a pill, $4 or $5 a pill. That's a lot, per day. I mean, I guess if you don't care and if the money's not an issue and you want to kind of throw it in along with your hormone replacement you're taking, it's not a big deal, but I wouldn't take it alone.
Let's go to, it's a really good question. And I know there are a lot of phases to this episode in your life. It's questions from Action Figure 86. The question is, how long were you out for when you tore your quad? For those who have never heard the story about how you tore your quad, where you were, which country you were, the modalities you had to use, the time that it took, and then obviously what it ended up resulting with, the relationship you formed out of it, the story about your quad tear.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's even interested anymore in it, but it's 10 years now. I can't even believe it. I went to India to cover the Shiru Classic, which was a show that they were holding after the Olympia. It was like a week after the Olympia. And Shiru, who runs the show and named it after himself, was very generous and flew everyone out there. All the competitors, Phil Heath was in the show, and I believe Kai Green was in the show. And he flew Aaron and I out there. Aaron Singerman and I were covering the show. And we got out there the day, I think we got there like at night, like 12 midnight, we got to the hotel. They had a buffet in India. We were in Delhi, India, in this very, 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 very fancy hotel that he put us up in. And they had this midnight buffet, which I thought was the coolest thing. And I thought maybe they just did it for us bodybuilders, but they did it every night. I don't know. I guess in India, people eat it like midnight. I don't know there. It's like a thing. And I must have eaten probably 20 different Indian dishes. Thank God it didn't bother my stomach because I love Indian food. And this was really good Indian food, I got to tell you. So we went to bed. Every person had their own handler. That's how, how much VIP treatment we were given there. And my handler said, everything good. We'll come see you in the morning. So we got up in the morning, and Aaron and I decided we were going to go do like a little tour of India. And so they got us a driver who would just drive us around the whole day, basically. Paid him like probably the equivalent of like $2, And he took us to all these different spots where we went shopping and we bought stuff. And I remember buying this, and I just told the story the other day, actually, on one of our shows. I bought this picture of the god of death, but it actually is not the god of death. It was actually the god of change. He's like, this god is a big believer in change. If you're looking for change in your life, little did I know the change I was going to get, because an hour later, when I got back to the hotel and I decided, hey, I'm going to walk down the block to the gym. It's right down the block. I went and did my workout. And I was walking down this spiral staircase they had in the gym that was all marble. Someone had cleaned it, just mopped it, for like, who mops marble in the middle of the day, right? So it was slippery, of course. And I always hold the railing when I go down there, just by convention, because I know that, you can fall down stairs and it's not something. So I was conscious of the fact that, I could potentially fall going down the staircase. But when you hold the rail on a spiral staircase, the steps that are closest to the rail are the most narrow. And, I got big feet. And it was wet and I slipped. And instead of landing, I didn't really slip. I slipped a little bit, but instead of landing on the next step, I landed 2 steps down. And because of that, I didn't anticipate that because the steps were so short, my ankle turned out on me. And when I landed on basically on like this with my foot. Instead of my foot this way, it was like this way. And I have really loose joints. And I guess my ankle couldn't take the weight of my body landing on it and not realizing that it was going to do this. And my quad just snapped. I didn't know what happened. It felt like my knee exploded is really what happened. And I stopped. Thank God I was holding onto the railing so I didn't fall down the steps, or I would have broken my neck and probably died. So, of course, I screamed. Everyone looking at me. People came rushing. And, of course, what do you do? The first thing I did, I tried to walk on it, which almost made me fall down the steps again. Thank God there was big Indian guy there who was worked out. He grabbed me and prevented me from falling down the steps. And so now I'm like stuck there. Thank God I had my phone with me. So the only person I know is I'm like Aaron. So I text Aaron. I'm like, Aaron, you got to get down to the gym. I said, I can't walk. I said, you're not going to believe what happened to me. So he comes down to the gym, and then they realize they got to get me out of there. So I got to get back to the hotel because I'm literally in the middle of nowhere, right? So thank God the hotel is just down the block, but I can't walk. And so they got to get one of these rickshaws with these guys. They hold the carts and they pull it. And I was just making fun. I was just making fun of those things. Like maybe like a couple hours earlier, like, oh man, who would go in one of those things? Well, I was in with the back of one of those things, and the guy pulled us down. Aaron and I looked like a married couple, just being serenaded down the block with this guy pulling us. Except it wasn't a horse; it was a human pulling us down the street and to the hotel. I go to the hotel, and then our handler took over, and I'm like, I got to go to the hospital. So they sent someone with us, and we went to the Delhi emergency room, which was like right around the corner. Right, it was right there and they drained my knee and they put me in a immobilizer. And the next day I flew back. And while I was doing physical therapy, that's when I met my wife. She was a physical therapist. She wasn't working on my knee, but she had called me and wanted to see how I was doing because she kind of knew me through, people in the industry. And she's like, hey, how's your leg doing? And that's how we went up, getting together. But which was actually not after the first. I actually had I had 4 surgeries. It was after the second surgery. That's really when my wife and I started talking. I was with someone else at that time. But the whole thing was like completely changed my life. Now, luckily I wasn't competing, but, it took me about 8 weeks and I was walking and something just wasn't right. And it seemed like the tendon just gave out. And at some point I went and saw another surgeon because my surgeon wasn't giving me any kind of like feedback I was looking for. And he said, I think your tendon gave out. We're going to have to redo this. And so probably 8 months after the case, I wound up getting it redone again. And then I had too much scar tissue and my knee wouldn't bend all the way. And I had to go back for another surgery for them to release it so that I can get back to motion. Let me tell you something. The quad surgery is not repair surgery is not painful. Getting range of motion back, and anyone I know, my client and good friend Aman Kumar is just tore his quad, is going through this right now, so he knows what I'm talking about. And Branch Warren certainly knows what I'm talking about, as well as Zach Kahn. Getting your range of motion back is the most painful thing you can possibly do, and it doesn't happen in a week. It happens over months, and every millimeter of movement you get back is the most painful pain you'll ever experience. It's very, very uncomfortable. And I had to do it once, and then I did it again for the second surgery. And then when I had the release done, I did it a third time. And then guess what? My tendon gave out again about a year later, and I got it done. Another surgery I tried, and I had to get back to range again. And then it released again. So the tendon never held. The sides held. So I have some connection there. It's terrible. It was a disaster. Like I said, the only thing that was the saving grace was I'm not competing now, so it's not the end of the world. It doesn't look terrible. It's just not that functional. And in life, injuries happen, things go wrong, and you have to find a way to work around it. I'm sure that's probably what led to my foot issue because it's the same leg. Probably my foot was being forced to overstabilize my leg because my quad is not doing what it's supposed to, and I think that's why the bones of my foot broke down also as well. At least that's my rationalization for it. So, a stupid little slip on a staircase. It didn't happen in the gym. I never seriously hurt myself in the gym because you know why? I'm very cognizant of what I'm doing in the gym, as we all are. It's when you're not paying attention, that's what happens. Lee Priest was walking his dog yanked it, he tore part of his pec muscle. You never know. And that's why I'm saying it's important to stay focused and be aware of what's going on around you. But we go in autopilot a lot. And that's when that happens. That's when guys slip on the ice and tear their quad or pop a bicep, shooting a basketball, or something like that. It's just stupid injuries like that happen. And they happen to us all. I'm not the only one. And so you can't think, oh, why me? I'm cursed. No, that's called life. And find a way to work around it. And, don't stew over it and don't be mad about it, because there's nothing you can do about it but just try to overcome it and come back better. That's my motivational speech for the day.
No, I'm glad you. I mean, again, I know I teased it as this having many chapters to it, and obviously, coming out with something you didn't expect, and that is your relationship with who would become eventually your wife. Yeah. But it is it is one of those pivotal moments in life, because obviously, you suffered that injury, but then so many other things, came as a result that, again, you're still kind of going through today. Right. But yeah,
it happened. I told you, all the craziest incidents in my life always happened on a year that ended in 2. So that was 12. Well, this is 22. At least I got another 9 years of good luck, because 2032 is around the corner.
Well, hopefully, 2032 goes better for you. So let's go to fitness. People in the UK love and rave about Primo. I honestly think 90% of it is fake. At best, test prop. Assuming you can get real Primo, can you notice any difference, be it visually, performance-wise, on, say, 700 mg test only versus 400 mg test, 300 mg Primo?
Yeah, I'm very, very, I guess you could say, I have a good relationship with Primo. Let's put it that way. I've gotten it from I've gone into pharmacies and bought it, in Spain back in the early 90s, and I've mailed it back to myself. And I've gotten real German Primo, back in the day. I had a very good connection to that. I've used a lot of Primo over the years, and I have to really say that it's probably nothing more in terms of strength wise than I think it's a longer acting version of Winstrol. They're pretty comparable in how they work. I know people think Winstrol makes their joints sore, which is the biggest bullshit of all time, but Primo is pretty much the same. It's just longer acting. So when you think about how strong it is, it's kind of on the weaker side, but guys and women like to take it because it seems to give you good gains, even though they're moderate, with very little side effects. Okay, so having said that, if you did like a Winstrol and Anavar cycle, and then you did like a Primo and Winstrol cycle, you're going to get some gains. You're not going to get a lot of mass from that, but everything's going to look good. So like when I did my first couple of cycles where I did Primo and Winstrol together, that was my first cycle. I probably put on 10 pounds of muscle. Okay, now that was granted, it was my first cycle. You always gain a lot in your first cycle, but it looked like I gained 20 pounds because I was super ripped. Because it wasn't that the drugs made me ripped, I was already ripped, but everything I put on was solid and there was no water retention. It didn't shut down my natural testosterone production, not that I knew. Now remember, I was only taking 50 milligrams of Winstrol 3 times a week, and I was taking 200 milligrams of Primo in a week. That was the dosages back in the 90s. That's what guys used. We didn't use more than that. No one used more than that. And so that was my cycle that I read it in an anabolic reference guide by Bill Phillips, and I did it for 8 or 10 weeks. And I looked great, and everyone in the gym was accusing me of taking massive amounts of steroids on because I was so lean, and my veins got really, thick from it because it probably raised the blood volume. But you're not going to put on, what I try to do is keep repeating cycles like that. And I realized after a while that I was just looking good on it. I wasn't getting much bigger after a while. You don't get that 3D density to your body on purely anabolic drugs. Now, women can do it because women don't have anything in their body, so their receptors are really good for that stuff. Men really need if you want to put on mass, you need to take testosterone, DACA, equipoise, drugs like Trenbolone. You need drugs that are strong. If you want to add a lot of mass, if you're just looking to add a little bit, you do a men's physique or something like that, and you just want to have a little more density in your body, then that's fine. But I think people think that Primo is some magical compound, and it's because it's just not available. But I will tell you this. In the 90s, when the only version of Trenbolone that was available was called Parabol. It was from France. It came in vials. It was 76 milligrams, and you would take two a week. And if you were rich and you were crazy, you did 3 a week. That was how people viewed it, which was nothing if you think about it, right? It's 150 to 225 milligrams a week of trenbolone, enanthate, or it was a longer acting trenbolone. I don't know if it was enanthate, but then everyone heard about trenbolone acetate and that people used to have it back in the day. It was called Finajet, and Finajet was made for the horses or cows, and it was a great drug. And I used to hear about it all the time, and I'm like, I got to use it. I got to use it. Oh, if I could only get my hands on it. And then people started making it there was something called Finaplex pills or tablets that came out. They were like pellets that they would put in the cows. They would pop them in the cows, and it would be like a slow release trenbolone. But there were fillers in there. Some of them had estrogen in there. So you had to know how to like isolate the stuff out and get the filler out and get the pure drug. And then there was a whole like basically cookbook, of how to make this stuff. And people were making it, and then everyone wanted that. It was like the magical stuff that if you can get your hands on that's like Primo now, because it's not available. So everyone wants it. And the stuff that is available, if you test it with the Roy test kits I sell at my website, you find out that 90% of it is probably test propionate or nothing, mostly test propionate. And so no one uses it. And so people are like, oh, if I can only get the real stuff. And every once in a while, I'll have a Middle Eastern bodybuilder show me, like in the pharmacy, the real one. It's called Rimabol. And now it's not called Primabol. They removed the P, and it's called Rimabol. And they're actually being legitimately sold. But aside from those, there's very, very few people making real Primabol, because it's the powder, the raw powder from China is very expensive. So of course no one's going to do it, but people know that people want it, so they fake it, and that's just the way it goes. There's in the fish trade, the tropical fish trade, there's a fish called an arowana, and they have beautiful ones. They have they're silver, but then they have albino ones, but they have some that are called that are red. And the redder they are, supposedly the more good luck they bring you. So everyone has them in Asia, but you can't bring them over here in the United States, because even though they're really not endangered, there's plenty of them. They pretend that they're endangered, and you can't bring them in here unless you have a special microchip and some kind of a certain license to have them or something like that. So no one has them here, but everyone wants them, right? Why do we want them so bad? Because we can't have them. I got news for you. The one I had, a white one that grew to 3 feet in a 600-gallon tank in New York. It was gorgeous, but I wanted that red one because I can't have the red one. That's what I want, and that's Primo has achieved that level of status in the bodybuilding world. Everyone who knows anything about Primo and who's ever used it, no, it's not a steroid that you really should have to have, but we want it because it's not available. We want what we can't have. That's human nature. I got news for you. Trenbolone not being available was way more of a I gotta have drug, and that was a good reason, because Trenbolone really changes the way you look. You grow, you get strong, you have a great contest look on stage with the stuff. It made a big difference. I guarantee you guys, Primo will make no difference in your life. Don't worry about it. Right now, it's mostly thin.
Take a couple of more questions. First, a quick hitter. That shirt that you were wearing the other day from Bobby Muscles, the Vaccinated with Tren shirt. Are those available? I know the first time you wore those, we had a lot of people asking us about those shirts. And I know he's posted, shared his link with us, whatever. Do you know if he's still selling them, and where can people go to buy Bobby Muscles collection?
All right, I'm gonna put it up. Bobby Muscles is a good friend of mine. I do his wife's diet as well. And he was making these Tren shirts. And then what happened was I don't know, I guess he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. And of course, what happens as soon as they're not available, everyone
then
wants
all of a sudden,
them, right?
yeah,
everyone wants them. So now he said, all right, you know what? He decided the other day, because I've been hawking them for probably 2 years to start making them again. He's selling them again. So I put the link up. It's BobbyMusclesApparel.com. And you can see all the different ones he has. I was vaccinated with Tren. Tren kills COVID. Planet Tren. I see fake natties. 98% steroid free. A lot of these shirts I can only wear to sleep, because I'm afraid my wife doesn't want me wearing them out in public because they're embarrassing.
Exactly right.
With kids. But I wear these on the show all
the
time. Yeah. And they're great. They're so original. I love the designs and everything like that. They're really good shirts. So guys, if you want to pick them up, you can go to BobbyMusclesApparel.com.
We'll put the link in the description below. Gym Rat Ryan wants. So first of all, we get this question every episode of every show that we do, and that is whether or not. Well, actually, no. The answer is you haven't, only because people keep demanding that you do this. When do you plan on apologizing to Big Lenny? And then more practically, Gym Rat Ryan wants to know, when will Big Lenny be back on After Hours?
He's invited anytime he wants. I find with Big Lenny that if I get him on too much, it loses it's like, I remember when I used to watch Saturday Night Live when I was a kid, and they did a skit. Everyone wanted to see Eddie Murphy in every skit because he was so funny, right? And they did a skit about overexposure, like that they did the skit too many times with I don't know if it was Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. It was one of his characters he used to do. And they did a whole skit about how he's overexposed now, no one wants to see him anymore. So if I put Big Lenny on too much, then Big Lenny can't be himself. Then what happens is that people get bored of Big Lenny and they don't want to see him anymore because he's not contributing. But if I get him on once in a while, he gets that cult status of Big Lenny continues, and people say, I wonder what they got to get Big Lenny back on. I don't want people to say, I don't want to see Big Lenny anymore because we've seen him too much. I don't want that to happen to Big Lenny. So Lenny has his own channel. All the Big Lenny fans watch that channel. And then every once in a while, if Lenny has a good idea or he's doing something crazy, I'll get him on the show and we'll do a special Big Lenny episode. We're probably due for one in another, couple weeks or so, because he hasn't been on, since before the holidays. So I always like to get a good update. Now that him and Mr. G aren't fighting anymore, we got to come up with another reason to have him on. But I love Lenny, and he knows that. And I would consider him a friend. He's a good guy. Even though he says crazy things, I know he's doing most of the stuff for sensationalism. But I think at the end of the day, in his heart, he is a good person, and that's the kind of people I want on my show. As long as I don't care if the people are like actors and they like to super sensationalize what goes on and make crazy statements and stuff like that. As long as at the end of the day, they're a good person inside, I'm cool with that. I'm all about theatrics and all that stuff. I don't have any problem with that. I don't think anyone on the After Hours shows takes themselves seriously. Anyone who does is off the show. And we know the people who didn't last on that show. Those are the people who couldn't take themselves seriously, who take themselves too seriously and got offended too easily. And those people just don't do well on that show because we all make fun of each other. There's not one person that doesn't get made fun of, including myself, on that show on a regular basis. And it's because we all know that we're all friends and we're doing it in good fun, and it makes people laugh and it takes people off their problems. And that's what the show is about. So, like I said, Lenny's always invited on. All he's got to do is shoot me a text and he's on the show the next day. That's how it works,
Take a couple of more on Nico Cantemir. What is Metaform and why do a lot of bodybuilders use it currently? To be honest with you, I got to just refresh my memory a little bit here. I mean, it's an injectable.
Is that the site injection product?
Yeah.
I don't. Let me just make a statement right off the bat, because first of all, a lot of people have been asking me where the painless pumps are on my website. We ran out. Okay, Steve DeLuca, who is the owner of Painless Pumps, the original, not the knockoff ones that are out there with, there's a bunch of them out there. He died, unfortunately, last year. No one knows what the cause of death is. I don't know if it was COVID related or not. And I had a lot of inventory I had just purchased from him because I used to buy a bunch of the bottles at a time and I would sell them on my website. We had regular customers for years and years and years. And so I continued to sell what I had left. And just recently, about a week or two ago, we finally ran out. It's probably been over a year since he died. And a lot of people was like, what should I use now? We don't have it. You don't have any more. And of course I don't have any more because Steve is not alive to make them anymore. So I don't know where he had them made or anything like that. I think from what he told me, they were made in France. So obviously the connection is gone. I don't know if I can't really speak to these other products because I don't really know, because I haven't used them and I don't know people who use them. And I don't trust anyone anyway who says they use things, because I'd like to see how it responds to a person that I actually am friends with, or since I'm not using the stuff anymore. So I don't want to give you hey, this is a great product, go try it, it's a good replacement, because I'm not sure, once again. So I only give advice that I know personally works. And hopefully there'll be someone who comes up with the problem with this, no one ever released the formula. Even Chris Clark, the originator of the of the synthol. Actually named it synthol, and actually his was the first, the pump and pose. He died too a couple years ago, and so I haven't had his product for a couple years either. So unfortunately, the two best products that were out there are gone, and someone will fill the void. I just haven't seen any products out there that I'm actually that impressed with right now.
Last one from Nikola Gagula. Which current bodybuilder, if you had to name one, would you choose as your training partner if you were in your prime years?
That's a good question. Nick Walker. I think Nick is probably, has the same mentality that I did back in the day. Train, don't annihilate, but when you do go to the gym, train hard, lift heavy weights. I'd want someone like him who could spot me, and I'd be able to spot him, because we're big guys and we were lifting massive weights. And I'd probably say Nick Walker. Yeah, I think don't get me wrong, there are a lot of guys that train really hard out there, that I would have no problem going to the gym with and training on a regular. But Lee Priest is very strong too, but Lee does a lot of sets. So I don't know if his method would jive with my method. I was a little bit less volume, higher intensity, more weights. But Lee's kind of older now too, so it's not really a good comparison. Of the young guys out there, Nick Walker comes to mind. When I see him train, it reminds me of myself.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. So we have the new show with Dave and John Romano. We were a little backlogged, and then, of course, everything would happen with YouTube. Yesterday, we were unable to upload that episode. We didn't want to because, quite frankly, we didn't want that episode to get completely underexposed. Yeah. But it's Dave, John Romano, the second episode of the new show, but featuring Jimmy Mentis. It got a sneak peek at it. It's a very long episode, but again, it's one of those just pure, insightful, entertaining, hard talk, right? So, again, featuring Jimmy Mentis. So, the knowledge, wisdom, and the insight that he brings, a true veteran of bodybuilding. So the new show, Palumbo and Romano, as we call it now.
No, we got a name. I didn't tell you.
Got a name. What's the name?
Who's calling me King Kamali? So there must be some gossip, but I'll have to.
All right. So you take the King Kamali call.
No. I won't take. I'll get back to him. I got to tell you the name of the show.
What's the name of the show?
It's called Rips and Rants.
Rips and Rants.
Yep, that's the name.
Rips and Rants.
Yeah. Like being ripped as a bodybuilder, and then we're ranting. So rips and rants. So that's what it's about. And it can apply to anything in life because we don't just talk about bodybuilding, but that's the.
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. What grew on me about the whole Palumbo and Romano thing is that name is so reminiscent of two Italian New Yorkers having their own podcast. This one just.
It sounds like we're eating pasta dinner, though. That's what that would.
All right, so new episode of Rips and Rants. Going live soon on the RxMuscle YouTube channel. If you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button, comment below. As always, we appreciate all of your support throughout the course of the week with all the new shows, new segments, and of course, throughout the course of the calendar week. Of course, the Arnold Classic, hard to believe, in just less than 3 months. So soon enough, we'll be revving up the engine, doing some preview content for the Arnold Classic. And then, of course, Arnold Classic weekend will be there, giving you all the live coverage. Obviously, yesterday getting news, yesterday blessing out with Debu dropping out. So the men's open class now 6, but it is a good, strong 6. Should be entertaining. And we can't wait to bring you all of the coverage. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.